We tend to think that transformation has to be this loud event, right? A lightning strike of insight, some massive, life-altering decision. But what if real change is quieter? What if it's happening in the background, almost without us even noticing?
This quote, it really gets to the heart of it. The idea that our lives aren't shaped by these grand, dramatic gestures, but instead by the smallest, quietest things we do, day after day. So let's explore this quiet force. It's a common myth that change has to be some kind of monumental effort. We picture this single, heroic act that changes everything.
So on one side, you have this idea of massive change. It's loud, it's sudden, it's the stuff of movies, right? And honestly, it can feel pretty overwhelming. But then, there's the other side of the coin, tiny habits. These are quiet, slow. They're the kind of actions that feel almost invisible, like they don't even matter in the moment. But the real power, well, it comes from compounding over time.
This is such a perfect way to picture it, isn't it? A single drop of water. It's nothing. But over years and years, millions of those drops can carve a canyon out of solid rock. And it's really the same with our own choices. One tiny decision today, it feels like it doesn't even register. But repeat it, day in and day out, and over time, it completely reshapes the landscape of who you are.
So how does this quiet force actually work? Well, it often seems to start from the inside out, by sort of tuning the instrument we all live in, our own body, our own mind.
It's a really simple but profound observation. Our bodies crave rhythm. You think about it, our energy, our mood, our focus, these systems just aren't built for constant chaos. They thrive on consistency, on natural cycles. And when we start to align with those rhythms, it feels less like fighting against a current and more like, just moving with it.
Take something as simple as getting a bit of sunlight in the morning. It's not just about waking up. It's about anchoring your energy to nature's clock instead of your phone's. That light sends this powerful, quiet signal to your entire system. It literally resets your internal clock. And that one small act helps regulate your sleep, your energy, and even your mood for the rest of the day. It's like having this silent conversation with your own biology.
Or think about this. We all carry stress from one moment to the next, often without even realizing we're doing it. A simple 1-minute pause. It's so interesting because it's like a circuit breaker. You're not trying to solve anything. You're just giving your nervous system permission to breathe, to interrupt that cycle of stress before it spirals. It's a tiny act that prevents that quiet buildup of tension that can so easily take over a whole day.
Now, here's a thought that might seem a little counterintuitive. Because while our systems love rhythm and calm, transformation, sometimes it comes from a brief, intentional encounter with discomfort. And it doesn't have to be some huge, monumental challenge. It can be something small, something controlled.
You see this with something like finishing a shower with a blast of cold water. The interesting part isn't really the physical sensation. It's the psychological act. It's this tiny, daily moment where you prove to yourself that you can choose to do something difficult. That discomfort doesn't have the final say. And when you do that over and over, it subtly reinforces this identity, the identity of someone who doesn't automatically run away from a challenge. So when you start tuning that internal instrument, when you create a bit of calm, it opens up space for something else, a different kind of awareness, a chance to just observe yourself more clearly.
Which leads to a really interesting question. How do we actually form perspective about ourselves and our lives? We tend to wait for those big aha moments, don't we? But what if it's built in a much quieter, more gradual way?
Yeah, this really captures it. Our understanding of who we are, it's maybe not a single snapshot. It's more like a mosaic, built from thousands of tiny pieces. Something as small as writing one line in a journal each day. It's not about creating some literary masterpiece. It's about laying down one tile, one little data point. And over time, those pieces start to reveal the map of who you're actually becoming.
Or think about a simple check-in at the end of the day. What went well, and what can I do better? What this does, quietly, is reframe your entire experience. By starting with the win, no matter how small, you're priming your brain to notice the good. Then, by looking at what could be better, you're framing challenges not as failures, but just as opportunities. It's this very subtle shift, away from judgment and towards curiosity.
Our brains kind of have a default setting, and it's to scan for threats and problems. It's a survival thing. So a gratitude cue, like say thinking of one thing you're grateful for while you wait for your coffee to brew, it's a way of gently retraining that wiring. You attach it to something you already do, and it becomes automatic. And what happens over time is pretty remarkable. Your brain just starts to scan for the good as easily as it scans for the bad. And that quietly changes your entire experience of the world. And what's fascinating is what happens next. When that inner world starts to become a bit more stable, a bit more self-aware, it can't help but influence your outer world, how you work, how you connect with people, the very environment you create for yourself.
It's really interesting to think about focus less as a productivity hack and more as a state of being. Think about how split focus feels. It's anxious, it's cluttered, you're only half present. It doesn't just make your work worse, it creates this internal static. Compare that to deep focus. When you give your full attention to just one thing, sure, the work is better, but more than that, the quality of your own experience right in that moment becomes so much richer.
And this is where small boundaries come in. Things like turning off notifications or charging your phone outside the bedroom. These aren't really about restriction. They're about creating intentional space. Every single notification you turn off is a small act of reclaiming your own attention. Every hour you protect from a screen at night is this quiet investment in your own presence, your own peace of mind.
This is such a beautiful observation about the energy we put out into the world. When you make a point to actively look for something good in another person, yeah, it creates a positive ripple around you. But it's also doing something inside you. It's training your own brain to notice the positive. So you're not just brightening someone's day. You are, in a very real way, changing the emotional weather that you yourself live in.
So, you stack all these tiny, quiet actions day after day. Where does it all lead? What's the end result of all this unseen work?
Well, it brings us right back to where we started, to a transformation that's so gradual, so quiet, that you barely even notice it happening from one day to the next. I mean, just look at these things. A few minutes of sunlight, reading 5 pages of a book, 1 line in a journal, 30 seconds of courage. On their own, any one of them seems almost laughably small, right? You'd think, how could that possibly matter? But the secret was never in any single action. It's in the quiet, steady compounding of all of them, together, day after day after day.
This really says it all. Maybe our future self isn't forged in a handful of massive, life-altering decisions. Maybe it's being assembled right now, piece by tiny piece, in the moments we choose to repeat. Every small choice we make is like casting a vote for the person we are becoming.
And maybe that's the most profound realization. The great transformation of your life, it isn't some big event you have to wait for. It's a quiet process that's already underway. It's happening right now, in this moment, and the next one, one small choice at a time.